What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. As you can tell, I'm joined again by SpeckzoPolitics again today. I thought the content was really good last time, so I thought, why not keep it going? So, yeah, I'll link all of his info below like I did on the last video, so you can definitely follow him on Instagram, Twitter, and all that good stuff. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good. I recommend follow me on Telegram, actually, because I got two 12-hour suspensions from Twitter this last week. I'm suspended for 30 days from uploading videos to YouTube. So it seems like my days on normal social media are numbered. So I think Telegram will probably be the best place. That's t.me/Speckzo. And real quick, I just want to address the shirt, because last time I wore this shirt in a video, people were telling me that I was wearing the same outfit as Shrek, which I kind of felt a little offended at that, because Shrek is a fictional ogre who lives in a swamp. I'm a real human being man who lives in a house. This is like an $80 sweater that I got for Christmas, and it's nice. So
and you promote draining the swamp. So
yeah, exactly. There we go.
You're anti-swamp. What?
Yeah, exactly. We don't like swamp.
No, we're anti-swamp here. Very epic, man. Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple news items to talk about today. I think this one might be less of an ideological video, but who knows where it'll go.
The first full week of living in hell, unadulterated hell week.
In hell planet,
yeah.
hell world. I think the one that's the issue that's kind of most prescient or is on most everyone's mind right now is kind of the stock market issue. You have GameStopGate, Gamergate 2.0. For me, and I'll let you go in on this after, here in a sec, but for me, it's not, again, there's nothing surprising there. I'm not as interested in the minutia of the stock market issue, because I mean, to be totally honest, I'm not, a trader. I'm not super involved in the market. I have, minor holdings in some of these companies, but I don't know the minutia of it, and I don't pretend to. What's more interesting to me regarding that is kind of the political fallout, because what I'm seeing from Con Inc., or more friends that I talk to, like conservative leaning friends that I have, they're of the mind that this is going to be this epic handshake between the between the worker left and the populist left and the populist right. And I think that that's pretty far-fetched. I think that that's disillusion. Nick has talked about this a lot. I really don't see that happening. I think a lot of people want that epic handshake to happen. And while I think that we're saying some of the same things, I really don't see the populist left and the populist right doing that epic handshake at all. I think it was probably best encapsulated when I'm sure you saw this, when AOC and Ted Cruz had an interaction on Twitter. Ted Cruz tweets, he quote tweets AOC and says, "I agree with her," pointing down to her tweet. She quote tweets him and says, "Well, you just tried to have me murdered a couple weeks ago at the Capitol, and you're a fascist and you need to resign." That completely embodied it right there for me. The idea that we're not going to have this awesome handshake moment with the left. They think that we're evil. Racist is the worst thing you can be in their worldview. Trying to play friends with them is only going to lead to you getting dunked on. He got ratioed on every tweet that he interacted with her on. So that's my general take. And I think we both agree on like the market manipulation stuff. Obviously, Robin Hood's in the wrong and the elites hate the people of the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Patrick Casey did a pretty good explanation of like why the populist left and the populist right will never get along, and it's for the reasons that you said. But it's kind of like how we have parallels with both like Marxist and Wignats, right? Like Marxist, we could agree that international capitalism is not conducive to a functioning society, right? And then with Wignats, we can agree that there is need for people to have a racial consciousness, and people should have the right to collectivize for their racial group interests and stuff like that. But where we disagree is basically everything else, how we go about promoting that message, or in terms of like the Marxist or whatever, we don't think that it's all white people and that are evil and stuff like that. And we don't think that the solution to this international capitalist horror show is by destroying all classes and races and stuff like that. So just because we have parallel beliefs doesn't mean that we're going to have that epic handshake and be like, oh, we can fight together, because we have completely different ideas for the solutions to these problems. Even if we perceive the same problems, we don't have the same like morals. That's basically what it boils down to in both cases. We are completely morally on the opposite side of the spectrum. And as far as what's going on with the economy thing and the GameStop, I am like retarded when it comes to economics and stock markets, stuff like this. I have no idea how any of that works. I put my stuff in an Acorns account. I have a 457 for my job and stuff like that. I'm saving money. I'm good with that, whatever. I have no idea how like day trading works, but somebody did fill me in and broke it down. If you want me to read this real quick, it says, imagine you made a deal with another party to buy your share of a stock at $3 a share with the agreement that you'll pay them back with interest in a week and buy all of those stocks back. Now imagine that instead of the stock dropping down to 30 cents a share, it rose to over $300 a share. Now you owe the other party the loan amount plus interest, plus you have to buy back all those stocks at 10 times the amount you sold them at. That's the day Melvin Capital had today. So what happened is, I guess they realized they were shorting the stocks, they were whatever loaning, and they bought it, and now the price rose and they have to buy that all back. Still, even broken down in retarded terms like that, no idea what that means. But what I do know is that all of my enemies, all of these billionaires are on TV hysterically crying. Literally. And that makes me happy. So that's all I really care about.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's very telling when you look at CNBC, and there's someone named Cooperman on the show, you know, literally in tears, wailing at the idea that the peasants made a little bit too much money one day. So I mean, yeah, exactly. That tells you all you need to know right there is you know, who's upset by this? Is Ben Shapiro on the side of the Redditors and Wall Street bets? No, Ben Shapiro is saying that, well, actually the stock market isn't a casino, and actually they do a good job of you know, maintaining, you know, determining what the value of a company is. It's like, okay, I clearly see what side you're on.
They make their money off of usury and speculation, off of our fake economy. And then when we realize, oh wait, there's a loophole where actually we can get a second helping of soup, then they freak out and say, no, you can't do that, you know. And now we're evil for doing that, you know.
Exactly.
But what's the most surprising thing about all of this to me is that Reddit collectivized and did something that isn't completely gay and cringe.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, no, that's actually probably the biggest development. Reddit not gay and cringe for once. But
that's insane.
I don't even understand the argument. It's like they collect, like the very telling thing to me, I was talking with a friend about this. The very telling thing to me is that they're not even claiming that anything illegal was done. Like normally, if in this kind of case, they try to throw the legal scare words at you, like it might be illegal what Reddit just did.
Market manipulation. What does that mean?
There's not even the accusation levied in this case. It's just literally like people collectivized and screwed some billionaires out of some money. Like, so that's very telling to me. But again, not surprising. The elites hate the people that they rule over. They hate Christians. They hate white people. I mean, it is what it is. But again, it's this like it's like a sheepish like desire by the right and Republican, not our faction of the right, but like Republicans to like want to have this again be that epic handshake moment with the left and be like class solidarity tomorrow, baby. And it's like that's not going to happen. They hate you. Like they, you know, I was talking to another friend. I was saying that because he was going down that same train of thought. He was saying, well, all quadrants of the political factions all agree on this one, and we're all just dunking on the billionaires. And that's true to a certain extent with the memes on Twitter. And I see what people are getting at, and I see why people think that. But really, when you look at it, and I told him this, I said, we're at the point now where the left and right could come together and storm Wall Street. We could storm Bank of America, right? And right before we enter the front doors, the left would turn around and say, wait, how many of you guys voted for Trump?
Yeah.
And that's literally where we're at. AOC is never gonna, you know, do some cool handshake with Bernie bro, because ostensibly Bernie bros are white guys and they're disillusioned with what the economic situation is, and they shouldn't be because they're white and they have privilege. It's never going to work. So I kind of think Republicans need to put that idea to rest, that we're ever going to have some great moment with the left where we all agree. I don't know.
Right. regardless of any overlapping similarities or viewpoints that we have, which I said they might be overlapping, but they're for the wrong reasons, or we have completely different moral and ideological views of how to solve those problems. There is no unification. There's not going to be any reconciliation with these people. These people are evil. These people are the people that support sodomy and pornography. They hate Christ. They hate white people. They hate moral order. They kill babies, literally, right? And so for 4 years, they told us that we were evil, that we're terrorists, that we are scum, that we are the lowest of the low because of what we believe in, right? And now suddenly when they're wielding power, people want to say, oh, well, now it's time to come together. There is no coming together because we were never together to begin with, right? And then you have these conservatives and Republicans saying like, oh, well, maybe we can have some common ground. Maybe we could have this bipartisan issue and stuff like that. And it's like, no, there is no unity. There is nothing,
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you want to go full biblical mode, I forgot what chapter and verse it was, but in Luke, Jesus literally says, I did not come to unite. I came to divide with the sword. And it's okay. Exactly. It's okay to hate evil. It's okay to despise evil. And
it literally says abhor evil.
Like, I don't even know what to say to people anymore. It's like, yes, I hate evil, and killing babies is evil. So I think we're kind of at that point where these are not, it's like when Biden was giving his inauguration address, and people like you and I saw straight through it about the fake rhetoric about, well, it's time to work together now, and let's put the era of division behind us. And it's like, one, you have no intentions of doing that. You want to lock me up because of this video that we're doing right now. You want me in a gulag because of this. And two, I have no intention of uniting with you. You're evil. You're gross. You're a horrible person. So, I think that's something that Republicans, and I assume that people that are listening to this aren't of that mindset, but that's something that kind of boomers and Gen Xers need to put behind them, is this idea of like reunification.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now we're like a broken family that it's like an abusive relationship that needs to be.
I wouldn't even call it a family. I think we don't have a nation or a country. We have a geographical landmass filled with strangers who hate each other, ruled by a tyrannical neoliberal elite who are Satan worshiping pedophiles who hate everybody, right?
And so they're not even American for the most part.
Exactly. And it's like, it's just a joke country. But what's horrible is that, like you said, boomers and normal people eat this shit up. On inauguration day, the night of inauguration day, there was this leftist guy that I know, and somebody asked him, what'd you think of the inauguration speech? And he was like, I thought it was really, really well done. And, Biden has a lot of work ahead of him and he needs to unite this country. And I was like, are you out of your mind? And like Nick said, if they were serious about uniting the country, which they're not, they would actually be extending an olive branch. They would stop and do some self-reflection and ask themselves, why did 75 million people vote for Trump? What is this disenfranchisement, if that's the word, of all these people? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they don't. They committed fraud to get him elected. They installed an illegitimate president, and what they want to do is wield power. That's what they want to do. They don't care about the system or having any moral standards or anything like that. Like, they try to push all like, oh, you need to have these moral standards, but we're just going to wield power. And then when we get in power, we go, well, we can't wield power because then they'll want to wield power when they do that anyway, So it's just a never-ending cycle of just us being like annihilated, and it sucks.
Yeah, exactly. I was re-listening today to Darren Beattie and Chris Buzzkirk's podcast about defeating the I forgot what it was called. It's the moral imperialism episode with Darren Beattie and Chris Buzzkirk, and he hits the nail on the head about how the right and Republicans in general, we play by the motto of "don't tread on me." Meanwhile, the left is playing with the motto of "silence is violence," and those two phrases juxtaposed, they're always going to win because their worldview mandates that we have their worldview mandates that we have to say something. Silence is violence perfectly encapsulates the left's ideology. Say what we want right now, or else you're a racist, and the racist is the worst thing you can be in modern society, and that means you deserve like death or something. Over here on the right, we're over here like, wait, just leave me alone to my farm, and I'll
just want to grill.
I just want to grill. And it's like, dude, they're going to come for you anyway. So like, why are you trying to appease their kind of their moral framework? But
and everybody eats it up. It's this like racism neurosis, right? Like
Yeah.
I was talking about it a little bit in a video I just made, and it's like they have this neurotic obsession about racism where they see it everywhere. And I used this example because with the little white girl who was killed by her adopted black mother, right? And I posted that, yeah, I posted that video, and people were quote tweeting saying, "Yes, this is a tragedy, but why is race mentioned?" And it's like, really? I was like, that's what you're
Actually,
offended at?
wait. Actually, if you want to, I forgot that's actually that ties in very nicely with the whole idea of this video. You want to break down that story really quick for anyone who hasn't heard about it?
Sure, absolutely. So a little girl named Victoria Smith was adopted by a black woman, and this black woman was not just like a regular nice black woman. She was first of all, she was an aspiring stand-up comedian, and she was also a Black Lives Matter activist who had BLM in her bio on Twitter and stuff like that. And on top of that, she also had a stand-up routine where she joked about child abuse. Now she just got charged with beating her white adopted child to death. So this was a story that wasn't getting a lot of news, mainly because of the stock market stuff, and also because the perpetrator was black and
Yeah,
the
because the
victim
racial
was white.
dynamics didn't work out the way that the media would like them to.
All right, absolutely. So I saw it on Instagram, and I saw like the article or whatever, and then I saw somebody posted the stand-up routine, and I saw that nobody was putting this together or whatever. So I just put it a 2-minute clip together, and it was like the news clip of saying like she was charged with beating her adopted daughter to death, and then it showed the stand-up routine of her saying, "Oh, I'm locking my kids in cages and then slapping them around if they're making noises, so the social worker can come in and I can get this little white baby." It was really like gruesome stuff.
Yeah, it was
Especially
really
like, right?
disturbing. It was
Yeah,
really dark, and
and
people were laughing to it too. I was like, "There's nothing funny about this. This is gross."
and of course, regardless of the races, children of any race or whatever should be off limits. Anything that hurts children is disgusting. But of course, race is relevant, right? And of course, if it was the other way around, it would be the biggest story in the nation. So anyway, so I posted this thing on Twitter that said, "Black woman kills her adopted white daughter," and performs stand-up routine making fun of it or whatever, child abuse. And Cassandra Fairbanks of the Gateway Pundit retweeted it, and it went semi-viral, right? And all these people were quote tweeting this and saying things like, "Oh, this is a tragedy, but why is race relevant?" Right? So it was like this racism neurosis where that's your first thought, is that you see a little girl was murdered, but you're more offended that I mentioned the race. But of
Right.
course, if it was the other way around, and if it was a white perpetrator against a black person, this would be everywhere, right?
Right. My quick response to that, to whenever people give me that feedback of, well, why does race matter? The quickest answer, and you can dive into it way more than just this, but the quickest answer is, well, because it's very clearly important to BLM and every other minority.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not important to you, then you're not playing the same game as them. You're losing.
Yep.
Clearly, BLM, Black Lives Matter, is a it's a racial centric movement. Like, clearly they care about race. Mm-hmm. And every minute you're not caring about it, that doesn't need to be the focal point of everything you talk about and believe, but mm-hmm. there does need to be a consciousness there of like, mm-hmm. there are different groups, and different groups are gaming the system based on their group identity. And every minute you're not doing that, you're losing the game. Mm-hmm. And it is a game. That's what we're playing here.
Yeah.
I just think it's a losing battle to sit there with the libertarian ideology. Well, let's all just, be friends and grill, and that doesn't mean that you can't have friends of other races. I'm just saying.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying that acting like it's irrelevant is a losing battle, because every other group is grouping up based on identity.
And they're encouraged to. Like, the way I look at it is that race is real, it's relevant. There are different biological, physical, and mental characteristics and behavioral predispositions between different races or whatever. That doesn't mean that all of one race does this one characteristic or whatever, but there are certain characteristics within different races, and race is real and relevant. And we should be able to talk about this. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, we need to have an honest discussion about race." No, you don't. You want whatever the media is telling you is appropriate discussion about race. And now white people and Christians are the only group of people that you can collectively identify as a group and talk about negative aspects of that group behavior. If you talk about Jews or blacks or any other non-white group, then you're a racist, a white supremacist, anti-Semitic, all these arbitrary pejoratives or whatever. So it's clearly a double standard, and every other racial group is encouraged to collectivize for their group interest and perpetuate that and advocate for that, for what's best for their racial group. But anytime white people do that, if they collectivize and say, well, white people have interest, if we're acknowledging ourselves as a group that has racial interest, then we're labeled the evil Nazi scum of the world, you know. And clearly there's a double standard, which we're not going to say, oh, everybody's hypocrites, but normal people need to realize this and say, yeah, well, it's not like, oh, we shouldn't be playing identity politics. All politics is identity politics. It should be like, well,
democracy is identity politics.
Exactly.
I think it's going to be interesting in the coming years with mainstream media. I mean, you've seen it, literally bragging that white people are going to become a minority in America. Mm-hmm. Well, then what does that mean for things like the Congressional Black Caucus? Are white people going to get a Congressional White Caucus? Mm-hmm. And I think that needs to be the world that every group is bracing for, is a totally racially stratified world, or country rather, where every group needs to look out for its own interests, because certainly the powers that be don't have any interest in protecting white people as a group. It seems very evident that the corporations and the powers that be have an interest in promoting Black Lives Matter, LGBTQIA plus ideology. I could foresee a Hispanic caucus forming in the Senate at some point, an Indian caucus, but I think that's something that people are going to have to look out for in the future. Some kind of group identity for white people, especially going forward when they're bragging about the fact that they're going to become a minority.
Right. You have all of these different groups, all of these different caucuses. You have scholarships that only give scholarships to Black people and stuff like that, or whatever. You don't have any of that for white people. And people want to talk about, oh, systematic racism. The only systematic racism that exists, what is systematic racism? That's policies that disproportionately negatively affect a certain group over another group. And the only policies that we have in the system are those that negatively affect white people. You have affirmative action, which gives Black people jobs over white people. Right. You have hate crime laws, right? You have all these scholarships and all of these groups that perpetuate their interests, right? You have the corporations and the media promoting Black Lives Matter and promoting critical race theory and all of these other things that make white people look evil and stuff like that. So clearly there is this massive double standard where white people are just labeled evil and Nazis and stuff like that. And, you know, we need to talk about it, because white people are becoming a minority in the country that their ancestors founded.
Very true.
For the first 200 years of this country, we were 90% European-derived people and 99% Christians, right? Yeah. Now that's gone down to almost below 60% European, and who even knows Christian anymore? You're not even allowed to have a cross in federal buildings.
Well, but I mean, even Christian by definition at this point, that could be some
progressive nonsense.
It could be like a rainbow flag in front of a Presbyterian church at this point. So what does Christian even mean anymore? But yeah, I agree with you. And it's funny, I was not gonna dox myself here too hard. I already used my name, but I was at work and we were doing a Zoom call, and I have there's a team that I work on of about 11 people, and like I just had a moment. We were on a Zoom call. And there's 11 people. 9 of the 11 are women. There's 2 guys, me and one other guy. The other guy's white. There's a team of 11 people, 9 women, 2 guys. Out of the 11 people, there's 3 white people. Mm-hmm. And the rest are either like myself, like Black, or there's a Hispanic girl, and there's a couple of Hispanic girls. There's 2 of those white people, 2 of those people in the 11 are white. By society's definition, this is an incredibly diverse team. So then I had the moment where I was like, wait, what would 100% diversity look like? It would mean no white people by modern definitions. So whenever people say diverse, we need diverse teams, we need diversity in the workplace, they don't mean anything other than like, let's just subtract as many white people as we can from any given space. And I realized that because if they really meant diversity, it would be like 60% white and like maybe 2 or 3 Black people and like 4 or 5 Hispanic people. But no, diversity just means like, if there's 0 white people, we've achieved 100% diversity. And I think that that's another thing that boomers and Gen Xers have to realize that they've kind of been lulled to sleep on, is diversity doesn't mean anything other than like get white people out of the room.
Yeah, it's just changing definitions of everything, right? Like homophobia, it's not a fear of homosexuals. Nobody's afraid of homosexuals. If you have a natural disgust towards homosexual behavior, you're homophobic now, which is not what the word means. So all these words, and racism is not racial hatred anymore. You know, it's all
Right.
these words, not to meme fuck 1984 or whatever with doublethink and all this stuff, whatever. But it
But it
really
is,
is.
it is
It's
accurate
Orwellian.
though.
It's Orwellian, right? How they
Yeah.
change these definitions and stuff. And what were we just talking about? The diversity. Yeah, they had when Black Panther came out, they were like, it's the most diverse movie ever. And it's like, it's the blackest movie ever. It's not diverse, right? So yeah, and also I love when they say, oh, diversity is our strength, which is another Orwellian thing. Diversity is the root cause of every problem ever.
Of every
Whether
problem.
it's diversity of thought, diversity of culture, race, whatever, that's what the problem is. And it's proven that homogenous societies, ethnic, cultural, homogenous societies are the most prosperous because they have this collective unification.
And Malcolm X, and I mean, honestly, I had a thread about this on Instagram. We've been sold this fake intellectual class of Black thought leaders.
Pseudo-intellectual, yeah.
Pseudo-intellectual 110 IQ people, Ida Bay Wells and Nicole Hannah Jones, all these just midwits who started the 1619 Project, but have no ties to people like Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, W.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey. These are people that actually advocated for a Black identity,
yep.
and creating their own space and not having their identity tied in with what white people thought about them. That's why Malcolm X was against integration, because he thought correctly that with integration, you would end up getting generations of Black people that tie their entire existence to what white people think about them. And he was right. Most African Americans' existence today ties into that white man looked at me the wrong way on the elevator.
Yeah.
Or the cashier was a little rude to me and it's because I'm Black. It's like, well, that probably wouldn't be a problem in Liberia. Yeah. Honestly,
their culture is all about oppression. It's how oppressed we are. It's like the oppression Olympics, you know. And when they talk about Malcolm X now and all of these other people that actually had Black identity and promoted like Black separatism and stuff like that, which there's nothing wrong with that. If
right.
You know, the way I view myself is it's not that I want to forcefully separate people. I believe in self-determination. If you want to be with your own people, there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolute freedom of association is what I advocate for.
That's why you go to jail or schools and the white kids are with the white kids and the Black kids are with the Black kids. But when they talk about Malcolm X or even Muhammad Ali and stuff like that, what do they talk about? Oh, they were civil rights advocates and they were Muslim and all this stuff. They don't really talk about what they were actually saying. Malcolm X was a straight up Black nationalist who he was wrong about white people, but
he was
But do you know who he was associated with? He was associated with George Lincoln Rockwell, right?
Yes,
who was
I've
part
seen
of
that.
the American Nazi whatever thing. I do not endorse George Lincoln Rockwell, but they went to each other's events and they liked each other.
It's very interesting, though, the affiliations that Malcolm X had and the people that were backing, without saying too much, the people that were backing MLK.
Yep.
And who was writing MLK's speeches, and the groups and the communists that were backing MLK. There's a very specific reason behind that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anyone like Ida Bay Wells or Nicole Hannah Jones in the 1619 Project have ever thought about this. And if they have, they've never given it any serious consideration because it's too inconvenient for them.
Yeah.
Go. You're good.
Like Malcolm X, despite his, I think he was wrong for how he literally kind of hated white people. Like he blamed white people a lot, but besides that, and besides him being Muslim, which is degenerate,
yes.
He was his own person. He was real. He was authentic, and he was very intelligent.
He was articulate as hell, man. When I listen to him versus MLK, it is night and day. It's like listening to Kobe Bryant versus LeBron James.
Yep.
And
MLK was just completely, what's the word, corporatized, fake, like just put together by these special interest groups or whatever. The only talent he really had was public speaking, and that's with like whatever the equivalent of a teleprompter was back then.
Stanley Levison.
Stanley Levison, exactly, who was a literal Jewish Marxist, right, who was under FBI investigation for funneling money from the USSR to communist groups in America, wrote almost all of his speeches. MLK, was going to Tennessee to these communist training groups. He wasn't a real Christian. He blasphemed Christ. He blasphemed Mary. He was a sexual degenerate who
he was a rapist, right?
Orgies. He definitely abused hookers and stuff and beat hookers, right? Which Yeah, that's not based. Don't do that. Don't abuse your hookers.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a complete fabrication. That's the word. I think it's a facade, right? He was just completely put together. And now he's the only American in history with a national holiday. Are you kidding me?
That's
And what did
insane.
he promoted integration, and he promoted no identity. And E. Michael Jones talked about this, how he basically stripped Black people of actually having an identity.
Exactly. And actually the funny thing that I found out was that during the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 64, I think, and don't quote me on the number here, but I know it was in single digits. Less than 10% of African Americans in 64 supported forced busing into schools. Black people didn't want that. That was a very it got memed into the public psychology. Absolutely. Of like, wait, no, we need to be on the buses. We got to go to the schools with them. Most Black people did not want that. Yeah. And that's just kind of memory hold at this point, to think that all Black people were just like chomping at the bit to go to school with white people. They didn't want that. We wanted our own communities. And that's what Malcolm X was really harping on, and he was right about. There needed to be a Black identity, not a merged white and Black identity. I mean, sure, there can be exceptions.
It's evil. It's evil for both races, for white people and Black people. They deserve their own identity. They deserve that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's thousands of years of ancestors and stuff like that, and like the broken branch meme. You know what I'm saying? Like, why is it evil for me to want my children to look like me? Why is it evil for me to want to be around people that have the same culture and the same heritage and same ancestors and same traditions as me? It's not. It's the most natural thing in the world. We've been psyoped into believing this.
Well, Muhammad Ali did that. He said that in that BBC interview with that British reporter. He said, blue birds fly with blue birds, red birds fly with red birds, and there's nothing wrong with wanting my grandkid to look like me. Like,
he said that in like 10 different interviews, and funny how that's completely left out of the Will Smith Ali movie.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Exactly. So that's actually a nice transition, because speaking of illiterate fake Black intellectuals, Harriet Tubman has come up in the news recently. Mm-hmm. It's looking like she's probably going to replace Andrew Jackson on the $20 note. Mm-hmm. Your take on this probably won't be surprising, but Speckzo, do you support that?
Not necessarily. It's like, look, Harriet Tubman, look, I'm sure, I think they might be a little overhyped. You know, I'm sure she freed some slaves, but 300, I don't know. I think the numbers are a little inflated there. I think
it doesn't quite add up.
No, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. But no, it's like, I don't know. I think I heard stories that she is like over sensationalized and stuff like that, but she's a Black civil rights activist. Okay, if she freed 300 slaves out of the thousands, right? First of all, she's a criminal. That was against the law.
It was against the law. If we're being totally honest, it's base level.
It's for what purpose? It's to pander to Blacks, and most Black people don't even want that. I was reading this thing before. It's like another horseshoe theory, like where we are against the same things, but for totally different reasons. They were talking about they were against Harriet Tubman because they're going to keep Andrew Jackson on the other side, and it's on money, which represents capitalism, which made the country rich off the backs of Black slaves and stuff like that. And it's like, no, I don't want her on the $20 bill and replacing Andrew Jackson, because Andrew Jackson is a real American hero. And
she's offensive to look at.
Yeah, she's not very pretty, you know.
Yeah,
and, it's like, why
DMV physiognomy.
Yeah, it's so dumb. And it's literally just a pandering job.
Right.
You know? I heard that Trump was actually trying to do this too, or Obama or something like that. But it's like, why? And if you're going to do that, right, why do you have to replace somebody else, right? Why can't you make their own thing? You know, replace Abraham Lincoln. Fuck Abraham Lincoln. He's way overhyped. But
yeah,
like for real though, like if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna honor Harriet Tubman and all these Black people or whatever, why are you replacing white people, right? Isn't that right? It's wrong if we replace Black people, right? So why is it okay to replace white people?
It's just like this common trend that I keep seeing of like trying to, and Scott Greer, again, I think I mentioned him on the last show we did. Mm-hmm. Scott Greer mentioned this. He said that it's like this eternal like seeking by the system to find like a Black superhero, whether it's Rosa Parks, whether it's MLK, whether it's Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman. They have to make these people like larger than life figures. Mm-hmm. outside of what they actually did. So like historically, largely what Harriet Tubman did was she didn't free anyone. She
was the Underground Railroad, right?
Underground Railroad. And mostly she took her family, like her loved ones that she found, that she went back into Maryland and found, which was just barely south of the Mason-Dixon line. They would have you believe that Harriet Tubman was in Alabama and Arkansas, and she was leading raids and she was like scooping up. Like, no, she literally went and found like her, and you know, sure, maybe morally courageous, but replacing Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill, no, thank you. I'm sorry. Like, we have our founders.
It's not equivalent. Yeah.
But then even larger, they're trying to replace our foundation myth, and they've largely succeeded in that. I don't know if you've heard of him, but Black Pigeon Speaks has done, he did a great video on this a couple of years ago about America's foundation myth used to be one of pioneers and settlers pre-World War II. Post-World War II, our foundation myth is that we defeated the Nazis. And basically what happens is that our foundation myth goes from being something positive in exploration and conquering land to something negative where our new foundation myth is anti-racism, basically. Because how do I navigate this? If you are not totally in support of the neoliberal world order, you're going against our foundation myth because, well, that's what our enemies in World War II believed. So I think that that's what they're trying to do. And you see the same thing with the 1619 Project. There's a very specific reason they're using a year in their project, because they want to change the year from 1776 to 1619 and have it centered around slaves. So everything that's happening right now is for a very specific reason. So they're basically trying to change our foundation myth. They're trying to make it negative, and they want it to be centered around something negative: slavery, oppression, like you said in the movie Ali. That's why they don't focus on any Black nationalism between Ali or Malcolm X. They focus on them being Muslims, because oppression narrative has to be at the center of it. So.
Pat Buchanan talks about that in Death of the West, where he talks about how in the 50s and prior to World War II and stuff like that, like you said, we were teaching kids that we conquered land and that we explored new things, we spread Christianity, all this stuff. And then post World War II and in the counter-revolution in the 1960s and stuff like that, we're teaching people that we were evil and that we have so much to fix and stuff like that. So it's basically making people hate each other. But with the Harriet Tubman stuff, the one thing that bothered me the most was these con Inc. establishment grifting conservative slur for homosexuals, talking about how like, I don't know a single conservative that is against replacing Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill. Then you don't know a single conservative. What exactly are you conserving? These people think that conserving is conserving the status quo. It's this neocon war hawks and all of this stuff. Conserving should be synonymous with nationalism. It should be conserving your nation, your people, your traditions, your heroes. Andrew Jackson is an American hero.
You can't even conserve the $20 bill, and you're claiming to be a conservative.
It's all so tiresome, and it's like you're not what exactly are you conserving? And it's all these people. Who was it? Ian Michael Chong, whatever that.
I hate that guy.
Is it true that he's not even American?
He's Malaysian. He lives in Malaysia. He's never been to America.
Yo, what is it with all of these foreigners obsessing about us? Like, we just live rent free in these foreigners' heads. I have so many Canadian followers who know more about like American policies than me. Like, worry about your own country. Holy shit.
Yeah. Stick with Malaysian politics there.
And who is this guy? Who is this Malaysian guy to tell us who is really American and who is not, or whatever? And wasn't he before he got like semi-famous or whatever, talking about how Hitler was a great leader, and then all of a sudden he's calling Fuentes a white supremacist and shit?
He used to LARP as like a total 1488er back in the day.
Yeah.
And now he's like totally like, War Room with Steve Bannon approved. You know what I mean? But yeah, I did see that take, actually. I forgot to bring that up. The conservative take that I don't know a single conservative. Wait, no, actually, no. The take is more, I don't like this picture of Tubman. I like this one of her with a gun.
Holding a gun, yeah.
Because Black women need to own guns. Frankly,
against the white supremacists.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh wow, you just won over the 5 people on the left who are pro gun rights.
Yeah. He's not so bad. Maybe I'll kill him last.
Yeah, exactly. Once we're all lined up against the wall, it'll be like, oh well, I was forced. Harriet Tubman being on the $20 bill with a gun. Yeah. It's so pathetic, and again, it ties into that sheepishness. It ties into that. No. I'm for our currency being changed. Just, can she have a gun, please? Maybe. Yeah. Like, It's
conservatism has become conserving the pandering to leftists. That's what conservatism is now, and it's disgusting.
yeah, it's conservatarianism
Mhm.
with like a little hint of leftism in it, where you're accepting their framework.
But
It's
talking
really
about
pathetic.
Yeah, talking about what I don't even know, Ian Chong, whatever, right?
Yeah,
The fact that he was like super like Wignat, which is hilarious because he's like super ugly and like totally horrible physiognomy, and that he was a Wignat. I'm sure
it's
that's how
it's
like 90% of them are too, by the way.
it's
But
unbalanced. Like his whole
yeah,
thing is unbalanced. I don't
but
like
if
it.
he was like that, if he was like that before he got like whatever job he has now, and now he's just a grifter and a total con inc establishment, I wonder how many people like are more towards our ideas, right, that are in the mainstream, but they just don't, and they remain quiet and they're total line just for the money, you know? That's
Yeah,
how much
yeah,
that is.
yeah. That's true. I think there's more of those people than we totally can know, because I know a lot of people in TPUSA and what's the other one? Young Americans for Liberty, YAF. Yeah, TPUSA. There's a lot of those people that reach out to me and friends of mine that are like, "Hey, we watch Nick every night,"
Yeah, same on my
but
Instagram.
like, yeah, exactly. But they're like, I'm just trying to play the long game here." So I think there's a lot to be said there, because at the end of the day, the conservative ideology, like the Con Inc. ideology, Ben Shapiroism, Daily Wire, it's not going anywhere. It's totally toothless, because you have something like the financial scandal, and I really think that this financial scandal that we're seeing with Robinhood, GameStop, AMC, this could prove to be a more effective version of Occupy Wall Street. I think that this lays it more out to bear than Occupy Wall Street, because you're seeing in real time that they will restrict your ability to trade stocks. If you're making too much money, they'll just turn it off.
Mhm.
When people like Ben Shapiro are saying that, oh, guys, those are just pranksters in their parents' living or their parents' basements,
Mhm.
I don't really see where Connie goes from here. I don't really see it. I get Nick's point about America First kind of being inevitable, because um, what's your response if you're Ben Shapiro? Like, how are you going to tell these 7.5 million people that have joined Wall Street Bets in the last 2 days?
Mhm.
Wall Street Bets subreddit has gained, it's doubled its membership in the last 2 days. A lot of those, I would presume, are conservative. And Ben Shapiro is telling all 4 million of those people that just joined, no, 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 you guys are wrong. And actually, they're not, the hedge funds aren't doing anything wrong.
Ben
And they're
Shapiro
actually
was
great people.
Ben Shapiro was one of the first never Trumpers, right? So how are you going to pretend like you're this principled conservative, and and he claims that he's against abortion, and he's a pro Second Amendment and all this stuff, but
He's
then he
not.
says that he would rather vote for Hillary Clinton, or Hillary Clinton would be the better choice over Trump and stuff like that, because at least she has a decent character and stuff like that. Like, what principles do you have? What are you conserving? Like, it's so backwards. It makes absolutely no sense. And I am extremely white pilled with this whole situation going on in Wall Street, because I don't know if I mentioned it. It's like there was first a revolt against the political system with people storming the Capitol, whether it was
Correct.
ineffective or not. The fact that it was just like this grassroots spontaneous thing out of nowhere, right? That's super white pilling. And now it's a spontaneous revolt against the economic system, which is showing that normal people are realizing how cringe and fake our system is, and that it's all an illusion, and that we aren't freedom. We have the illusion of freedom. I was talking about this the other day, that we claim, oh, we're the land of the free and stuff like that. What are we free to do? We're free to watch porn, get intoxicated, abort our
Yes.
children and stuff like that, but they're making it progressively harder to raise a family, to buy a house, to get an education without accumulating massive amounts of debt. We're not free. It's an illusion. Our freedom extends only to the point where it doesn't negatively impact the neoliberal established order.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm free to roll a joint and watch Pornhub
Yeah.
in my bug box.
Yeah.
Oh,
Awesome.
that's
Yeah.
that's and eat the crickets and
Yeah.
and
Eat the
uh,
bugs.
and wear 3 masks when I go to every restaurant. That's not freedom.
Nope.
You need a certain amount of order in order to.
You can't have freedom without order. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You
Foundation
can
of
have
order.
two of the three. You can. What is it? Freedom, equality, and diversity. You can only
Mm-hmm.
have two of the three.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now what we're living through is we have freedom and well, I don't know, that's probably an entirely different video, but that is something to think about. Freedom, equality, and diversity. Generally, you can only have two of the three.
Yeah.
And I
Freedom.
think, yeah,
Yeah. Freedom without order, it just becomes chaos. And that's basically what it is. It's basically controlled chaos is what we have now. They allow chaos to go until it hurts the system. And then when it starts hurting the system, what do? They rig the election.
Yeah,
it's a
narco tyranny. It's a narco tyranny. They don't have the ability to shut down BLM,
they can't call them the National Guard. Yeah.
No. But they certainly can utilize the resources of the state to do. Did you see this Facebook post? There was this lady. She was at the Capitol. She didn't go in the Capitol. She was just at the protests. She was outside on the lawn. She went to Mexico with her daughter, and they stopped her going.
Facial recognition?
Yes, using facial.
That was a girl? I thought it was a guy, but yeah, I heard about that. That's
it was her and her daughter. Both ways. They stopped her both ways. Going out of the country, she was just like, this is just an anomaly. When she got back in the country, she asked them, wait, why have I been stopped so many times? They said, frankly, ma'am, we utilized facial recognition. We found out that you were at the Capitol on January 6th. So like, what kind of, so, and this isn't to you, but like to normie-cons, it's like, tell me how this is any different than the Chinese social credit system that you abhor so much.
Bro, Uncle Ted is weeping, different? Bro. Ted Kaczynski is crying now, bro. Holy shit, that's insane. That is literally like
that's the one pardon I'm upset about.
Yeah. Technological. Trump didn't do. Yeah, technological dystopian nonsense. That's crazy. That's like science fiction. That's like the Minority Report, where we're stopping you before you commit crime because it's likely that you commit crime or whatever. That's insane.
Yeah, but the extra icing, the extra layer of the icing on the cake on that one is, if we were to go full Minority Report and stop people from committing crime before they were about to commit it, then frankly, there would be certain racial groups that would be disproportionately impacted. But what we're getting is Minority Report with neoliberalism. And the worst thing you can ever be called is racist. So all you can do is arrest like a guy who voted Trump and is like a part of his his local union or is like a state representative. So you end up arresting people who are like the Ruby Ridge people, the Weavers or something, and not like Jamarquius, the criminal multi-arrested crack dealer, because it would be racist if you went after him first.
It's crazy. And it's like what I was talking about, how neoliberalism is basically the worst of both worlds. It's social neo-Marxism trying to like rapid identity politics except for white people and like destroying the class structure and all this stuff for the common people, but then it's corporations colluding with the government to promote international capitalism. So it's like the worst ideology ever invented. It's insane.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking out loud on Twitter today, back to the Tubman thing. Like, and actually this might be an interesting kind of side point. It's kind of how much media determines what our view of people is. And you kind of touched on that on Malcolm X and Ali, but I tweeted out earlier today, I said, how far away are we from a Quentin Tarantino directed movie about Harriet Tubman? And she was like this sassy Black woman, and she was, and there was some redneck slave owner said, you can't unchain them slaves. And Harriet Tubman goes, yes, I can. Like, and how far would that go? That would actually change a lot of young people's minds. Mm-hmm. Young kids would grow up watching that movie and they would say, wow, Harriet Tubman did that because I saw this movie, from Tarantino about this person. MLK is another example of media ballooning, I don't know what the right term is.
Atrocity propaganda or
it's total propaganda. And I think we're not far from that. I could easily see a Tarantino movie about Tubman or Rosa Parks, and gratuitous violence with Tubman, and she's just shooting people. Like I could see a Django style movie, but with Tubman.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean?
Not even Django, because what's funny about that, you mentioned that, because I was thinking about this before. Quentin Tarantino used to be one of my favorite directors. Pulp Fiction is like one of my favorite movies of all time.
One of my favorite also.
And like I used to love Inglourious Basterds before I was red pilled. And I'm gonna try. Hold on, let me try and produce my thoughts and try to say this as optical as possible.
This optically, but I know exactly where you're going.
All right, so the narrative, right, is that Nazis are the most evil people in the world, right? Mm-hmm. But then anybody who is a white person who's right of Bernie Sanders, right, is a Nazi. So what is that? What are they trying to do? They're trying to dehumanize Nazis, but equate Nazis with any white person. Right. Yes. So they're dehumanizing white people. That's the main goal of what they're doing. And that movie, so the main narrative of World War II, obviously, right, is that whatever, they killed 6 million Jews. They were the epitome of evil. Hitler is the boogeyman and stuff like that, right? But the mainstream narrative is actually that the regular Nazi soldiers didn't know about the Holocaust and all of that stuff until after the war. Remember, there's like that famous picture of the Nazis watching the camps be liberated by the Red Army and stuff like that. And they're all like, oh, I can't believe we did this and stuff like that, right? So the Nazis didn't know about the atrocities. Apparently it was this secret operation, right? But still, we're showed all of these movies that we could just kill Nazis at will. And you have what's it called, the Quentin Tarantino movie Inglourious Bastards, where these 8 Jewish guerrilla soldiers are just slaughtering
and they're swastika on their heads and stuff,
and they're shown as the heroes of the movie when they're just killing these things. But if you're going by the historical mainstream narrative, it's that these people were just fighting for their country. They had no idea that there was like these atrocities going on. So what are you actually trying to say? That anybody who was in Germany at the time is technically a Nazi, and you should have the right to just slaughter them at will? It makes no sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's the interesting thing to me was when I saw, so there was an article on BuzzFeed, I think, one time, and there were 9 people in the film department, I guess, of BuzzFeed, who reported on like movie reviews and stuff like that. And they all had very they very much had last names that you would expect. Yeah, exactly, right. There were a lot of Steens and Steins, and so that was their film department. And they were all asked what their favorite Tarantino movie was. Out of the 9, 7 of them said Inglourious Bastards. And that was kind of a wake-up call to me. I was like, wait, why would you guys like that movie? Oh, you like that movie because it affirms everything that you believe. It dehumanizes white people. And there's no black people in that movie except for an interracial situation with the black guy and the French girl that owns the theater. So it's like, it's a very
I didn't even think about that. That's very true. Holy shit.
That's the only black person in that movie. Yeah. It's an interracial relationship. And that's very much on par for Tarantino. Absolutely. Because his dad wasn't in his life and his mom only dated black men. Wow. So
and he has like a foot fetish, and apparently one of those pictures looks like it was like a little girl's foot, and he was on the plane with Epstein and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, Tarantino is a total degenerate.
Right?
He's a great filmmaker. And I'm not even going to lie about that, but he is a total degenerate. Oh, yeah, every dynamic in his movie centers around like interracial mixtures and framing white people as the bad guy.
Really, making the woman the hero. Kill Bill, which I love that. I'm sorry. I love Kill Bill. I love Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. They're like some of my favorite movies, bro. But yeah, once you understand, you can see things for what they are. Man. You can still enjoy things. That's one thing that I learned too. Because when I first got red pilled, all I saw was transnational elite propaganda, right? And I couldn't like enjoy anything. But then you have to realize that you have to still be able to enjoy stuff and look past that stuff.
Yes,
or else you're not going to have anything. You're only going to be able to listen to like Gregorian chants and
exactly.
stuff.
And that's why I kind of reject when people are like, oh, JB, you like sports ball? Yeah. You like your bat? It's like, okay, I've been watching the Dallas Mavericks since I was 6. It's my pastime. I love me some basketball. Like, not to get
the purity
stereotypical here, but I love me some basketball,
The purity spiraling is insane.
People purity spiral. So,
but
man. Were there any, again, as with every video, I can go as long as you want.
I have nothing going on right now, but
were there any other topics you saw going
on? No, nothing that I could really think of. Super. Apparently, that QAnon congresswoman is under fire. You saw that?
Marjorie Taylor.
Yeah. That's the only thing I was really seeing.
Nick had a good monologue about that the other night. He said that I liked he had a really good show last night. His last 2 shows, they're all really good, but his last 2 shows have been on fire. He said that's kind of the telling, like it's very telling when someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene speaks out against or speaks out in favor of something like QAnon or not necessarily believing the narrative around certain shootings or anything like that. That kind of tells you that they weren't raised in a petri dish and meant to become a senator, or they They weren't a trust fund baby.
Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is someone who's a citizen. She's a patriot. She believes what she believes. And anyone who believes the things that we believe, those are people that are authentic, frankly. So all that tells me when the system is attacking someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, that tells me that she's real.
Yeah.
Because they don't do that to Paul Ryan. They don't dig through Marco Rubio's old Facebook posts. They don't dig through Dan Crenshaw's old Facebook post. No. They only do that to people that could pose a real threat to the system.
Right. Because it's like an arranged marriage with these corporate people.
Exactly. So
yeah, and it's like, but what I'm seeing with, what's her name, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, I don't know much about her, but I just know the
Me neither.
The overview story.
All I know is what their critiques of her are, and when I hear those critiques levied against someone, I tend to like them more.
Yeah. But it really seems like the whoever you want to say, the system is overextending their hand recently in rapid succession. You know, like with the election fraud, that is blatant fraud. When 4 out of 5 Republicans don't believe that the election is legitimate. And then with the economy thing, with all of these apps at the same time shutting down and not letting people buy stocks. And now with Marjorie Taylor, now she was elected by the people, but they're going to censor her or censure her, whatever the word is, you know? So it's like anytime that any type of authentic revolt against the system happens, then everything just gets shut down. And it's just breaking the facade for so many normal people. And I feel like we talked about last time, it's that as this facade continues to break down, people are just, it's not going to be like a mass awakening or anything like that, but more and more people are going to be like, holy shit, everything I've ever learned is a lie. Like us, when we got red pilled, like it's a very jarring experience when you red pill, and how you respond to it. It really shows your character. Some people go the Wignat route, some people go the accelerationist route or whatever it is, or people just get depressed and stuff like that. But if you can like actually like step back and like look at everything for what it is and be like, all right, what is the step forward, you know? But like, if you're going to have that jarring experience to millions of people, that's going to create such like a chaotic environment. It's going to be insane.
Yeah. Like you said, with our last conversation, I touched on this idea that trust in mainstream institutions, from academia to law enforcement to the military, media, everything is falling apart right now. And actually, we saw the fifth nail in the coffin starting on Monday. It was the financial institutions. The right wing can no longer say that we live in a free market because the peasants got a hold of a little bit of bread. They got a hold of a little bit of, they got a little news on Wall Street bets. And the billionaires and the powers that be made sure within 24, 48 hours to shut it down. They made sure that you weren't able to trade those stocks anymore. They were able to put limits on those stocks. They were able to make sure that you weren't able to make the money that you were making before. What does that tell the average person, ostensibly right-wing, about the free market and the institutions that claim to support them and represent their interests? It tells you, not you, but it tells the average person that the powers that be literally hate you and they want you poor, starving, and they think it's hysterical. And they're laughing at you just like they were doing during Occupy Wall Street from their balconies, from, you know, mansions that they paid for with the money that they, frankly, cheated people. They pay for these mansions with money that they cheated people out of. You know what I mean? Like the whole system is fake. It's all fake. It's fake money.
It is. It's just numbers in a computer. I was reading about how the Federal Reserve, first of all, it's not even a federal institution. Second of all, it doesn't even have reserves. It's a private organization. And our money, only 3% of it is backed up by gold ever since I think it was Nixon or somebody who stopped the gold standard, right? So basically all our money is printed at will. It's fake. The interest rate is completely controlled. It's transnational confetti, you know? So it's like, the whole entire thing is just a mirage, right? A facade. And they need people to be cogs in the system and to go along with it, or else they're going to have a threat to their system. And that's the only thing that they don't want.
Right. And it's hysterical to me. And I'm not surprised by this, but it's just hysterical to me that, like you said, it's like confetti. The money is literally confetti at this point, but they can't bring themselves to cut us a $2,000 check. And the pushback I get on this, ironically, is like, well, why don't you just work some overtime? You don't need the money. No. I'm not arguing for the stimulus checks because I need the money. Like, frankly, I have a good job. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But it's the principle of it. It's like, well, could I use 2,000? Absolutely. But it's not like I can't pay for food. It's like, I'm fine. But it's the principle. It's that you guys can bail each other out. Melvin Capital is already talking with the government about a bailout for themselves after the GameStop losses.
Of course. But they can't bail out. They can't give us $2,000 checks.
They can't give us $2,000.
Businesses. It was the biggest.
Destroyed us.
It was the biggest wealth transfer in human history. It was like the middle class of small business owners lost $200 billion, while the upper class gained like 3.8 or 200 billion or something like that, which is insane. It's a total wealth transfer. And to what you were saying, what were you just saying about what's it called? I forgot. I totally lost my train of thought.
The stimulus checks, or
no, that we were just talking about Melvin.
Oh yeah, Melvin Capital might get a bailout from the government because of the losses that they incurred during the GameStop thing. And again, that's just very telling to me that they cannot bring themselves to pass legislation for the average American person, but they can certainly, move quickly to regulate Robinhood. They can shut it down. They can give Melvin Capital however many billions they lost. The whole thing's rigged. It's not a free market, and Republicans really need to kind of, I don't know, talk themselves out of that. There's nothing free about this market.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The whole idea when you were saying like, oh, I'm going to be fine, but it's still about the principle. That's what these people don't understand. I remember when, like, I think it was something to do with Trump trying to pass the taxes or whatever, and there was this post on Reddit, and it was like, well, this is going to hurt me, but I know it's going to help a lot of people or whatever. And then these leftists were like, see, they're voting against their own interest or whatever. And it's like, you're just thinking in this hyper individual way or whatever. And it's like, I care about the collective well-being of my society. I care about the health of my nation, right? So something that might negatively impact me or whatever doesn't mean that I support it for everybody. You know what I'm saying? If it's going to help more people, like my nation as a whole, but it's going to hurt me, then I'm going to support it.
Like, for example, well, no, go. You're good.
Oh, for example, I say that my wife is an immigrant, right? And people are like, how are you against immigration or whatever? And I'm like, oh, because I am the exception where I met an immigrant that I love and that it worked out good for me. That means that, just destroy all borders and destroy my nation because, you know what I'm saying? Like, it makes no sense. That would make me more of a hypocrite.
That ties in perfectly to how I feel about race. When people tell me that how dare I believe in IQ stats, or I believe in the reason for racial disparities in income is a result largely because of IQ and mental capacity and things like that. That doesn't mean that I believe that about myself. Are there exceptions to every rule? Absolutely. Yeah. There are individuals. I'm just saying that by and large, there are trends. Like, it's not complicated. And I think you actually asked me that last time, how I squared that circle with like being Black in the America First movement. It's like, it's not a big deal to me. Yeah, I'm kind of an anomaly. That's fine. But by and large, I need to acknowledge certain trends that are happening outside of me. You know what I mean?
It's weird with you because like I said about the Black kid that I'm friends with or whatever, it's like even Black people that like are the exception and like they are more free thinking and are attracted to more nationalist ideas and stuff like that. Like the people that would be more towards like Malcolm X type thinking or whatever. It's like, even when you explain to them and you get them on your side or whatever, when the media and when their other friends tell them, no, this is what we're doing, and then they start to ostracize them for going away from the group or whatever, then they just go, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm still with Black Lives Matter and stuff. So you are definitely an anomaly that you're able to like still go away from that, you know?
Yeah, it's because they've been infected with neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is like the cancer. It's a total cancer. It's a mind virus because, like you said, you could have the correct ideology one day, but neoliberalism, if you watch, CBS at 6 p.m., the nightly news, you'll be brought, if you don't have a strong ideological foundation, you'll be brought right back to where you were before if you don't have anything grounding you. So it's interesting. You do have to have some kind of like base, and my base is what's best for the American people. And the next question is, who are the American people? Yeah. And then exactly. From there, I just get everything from that.
And I don't know what made me think of this, I guess, because you said American people or whatever, and people keep saying like, oh, it's the culture, it's not the race. Meanwhile, that culture is a derivative.
No, culture derives from race.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's a manifestation of the racial spirit. And I remember Ben Shapiro he was on stage with like these two black people or whatever. This is from like 6 or 7 years ago.
I remember
Trump,
this.
right? And he was talking about the 1350 statistic.
Yeah, he went off.
Yeah,
he went off.
I was like, whoa, who is this guy? Right?
Oh, whoa, I missed this guy.
And then he's like, oh, but it's not about race, it's about culture. It's like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? But there is also like not truth about that. But when we were talking about like the Jim Crow era and stuff like that, and like all of these neo-Marxist integration, racial like identity stripping stuff or whatever has destroyed the black community, because during the Jim Crow era, before the 1960s counter-revolution and civil rights movement and all that stuff, right? The literacy rate was higher in the black community. The out of wedlock birth rate was lower. They all knew their father, going to school, all of that stuff. Everything, they were way better off.
Yeah, I mean, not to go full Thomas Sowell libertarianism, but Thomas Sowell has done great work on this. I mean, that's probably should be a good starting point for anyone regarding like race. At least start with Thomas Sowell and then go from there. But Thomas Sowell wrote a lot about how in Harlem in the 40s and 50s, people would just leave their doors unlocked and people were able to sleep on the back porch or leave the doors open. There were no robberies or anything. There was no drug problem. When Black people had their own communities, it was actually fine. Tulsa, Oklahoma is another good example. It was not burned down by white supremacists who shut it down. Tulsa, Oklahoma had its own Black Wall Street. Harlem was a thriving area of Black entrepreneurship. Yeah. I mean, these were good areas, and it really all turned to hell around 1965.
Yeah, because you had forced integration, the rock and roll revolution, the de-Christianization, promoting promiscuity, the introduction of birth control. You had all of these things all at once.
And actually, you just hit something else also. Even before 1965, Black people were largely Christian. Exactly. That's the biggest thing. And not even in like the sense that we see now with Black people putting like a Bible verse in their Twitter bio. I mean like practicing Christians. Like they would go to church on Sundays and they abided by that. And their grandma went to church. They went to the local Baptist church that they've been to for generations.
Yep.
I'm telling you, man.
That's the biggest thing. The two biggest things that are, but besides, obviously there are racial disparities and stuff like that, but
those will always exist.
100%. But the worst thing that happened to Black people is what's it called, fatherlessness and de-Christianization, which basically go hand in hand, and it's a result of everything else. And I'm not saying like, oh, it's the evil white supremacists or stuff like that, but they did introduce drugs into Black communities, the CIA with all of that stuff, right? And they did purposely spread the glamorization of what's it called, gang violence and hip hop and all of that stuff, which did also accelerate the decline of Black communities. And they weren't Christians who were doing that.
What were exactly? What were the last names of those people that were running those record labels? I forgot. Can't remember right now. I think it was Levison or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're dead on. Degeneracy is the disease, frankly. Degeneracy and lack of identity.
Yeah, it all boils down. Everything boils down to materialism, putting the worldly, the material, the temporal over God.
It's true. It's true. I think that's probably a good point to end the video. It's all about God and reject materialism and embrace tradition, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome, man.
Return to your tradition.
I will link everywhere to follow you in the bio below.
Absolutely.
Good talk, man.
You too.
Let's do it again next weekend.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. Later, man.